Some moments in life hit you so fast your brain can't decide whether to panic, apologize, or just disappear into the sand. And that was exactly how Daniel felt the afternoon he took his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, to the beach, hoping for a few quiet hours away from work, trouble, and the heaviness that had been sitting on his chest ever since his divorce. That he never expected to look up from building a crooked sandcastle and accidentally lock eyes with his boss, his strict, intimidating, no-nonsense manager, Olivia Hart, just as she was switching out of her wet swimsuit top behind a towel that suddenly slipped. For half a second, time froze. She gasped. He froze. And she definitely saw him looking, but what happened next wasn't anger, or embarrassment, or a screaming match. What happened was kindness in a moment where most people would choose anything but, and that moment changed both of their lives. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales River for more stories that touch the heart and remind us of the goodness in people. Make sure to like, comment, and share your thoughts. We love hearing from you. Daniel had been having a tough year. Being a single dad wasn't the struggle, it was the loneliness, the constant pressure of balancing work and parenting, and the quiet guilt he carried from a marriage that had fallen apart in slow motion. His job at the marketing firm was the one steady anchor he relied on, even though Olivia Hart, his department manager, sometimes intimidated him so much he felt like a school kid trying not to get in trouble. Olivia was sharp, organized, and always dressed like she was heading into a boardroom battle. She didn't smile much. Everyone respected her, but nobody really knew her. And because she was so professional, so structured, Daniel could not imagine her anywhere outside the office, especially not on a sunny beach, in sunglasses and a loose wrap, holding a dripping surfboard with her hair down around her shoulders. But there she was, and there he was, staring at her in the most unfortunate moment possible. She clutched her towel to her chest and walked toward him, her jaw tight, her expression unreadable. Daniel felt his stomach lurch. He immediately put his hands up. "Oh God, Ms. Hart, I swear I didn't, it was an accident, He couldn't even form a sentence. Olivia stopped in front of him, her face still serious. "Mr. Collins," she said, voice low, "I'm sure it was." He blinked at her, confused. She held his gaze a moment longer. Then her expression softened, "Not a lot, but enough. Next time," she added gently, "maybe just look away faster." He nodded furiously. Yes, absolutely. "I'm so sorry." She took a breath, looked like she was about to walk away, but then Lily ran up with a plastic bucket full of shells, her ponytail bouncing. "Daddy, look! I found treasure." When Lily spotted Olivia, her eyes widened. "Oh! Are you Daddy's boss? Daddy says you're very smart." Daniel nearly died inside. Lily, but to his shock, Olivia smiled. A real smile. "Small, but warm, is that so?" she said, kneeling down. "Well, I think your dad is very hard-working." Lily grinned like she had been handed a popsicle. That was the moment everything changed. Olivia ended up sitting with them for a while, making small talk, keeping her towel wrapped around her like armor. Daniel kept his eyes politely fixed on the ocean, the sky, the sand, anywhere that wasn't vaguely in her direction. His nerves were still on fire. But as minutes passed, something unexpected happened. She relaxed. She asked Lily about school. She asked Daniel about how he'd been managing his workload. She told them she surfed on weekends to clear her head and to get away from the pressure of constantly having to be the perfect leader. "I guess we all need a break from who people expect us to be," she said quietly. Something in the way she said it made Daniel's chest tighten. Maybe because he understood that feeling a little too well. After about 20 minutes, she said goodbye and headed back to her spot on the beach. Daniel let out a breath he had been holding for too long. He figured that was the end of it, that come Monday morning, she might pretend the whole awkward accident had never happened, but it wasn't. The end. It was the beginning. On Monday, Daniel walked into the office expecting tension, avoidance, maybe even a stern conversation in her glass-walled office. Instead, when he passed her desk, she said, "Good morning, Daniel," with a tone he had never heard from her, gentle, almost friendly. He tried not to overthink it. tried not to replay the beach incident in his mind. But later that afternoon, she stopped by his cubicle. "How's Lily?" she asked. He looked up, surprised. "She's good." She asked if you found more shells. Olivia's lips twitched in amusement. "Tell her I did." Over the next few weeks, something subtle grew between them, not romance, not yet, but kindness. Warmth. Humanity. The kind of small gestures that say, "I see you. I get you. You're not alone." She started asking him about his day. She encouraged him to submit his project ideas. She noticed when he looked tired and insisted he take his unused vacation day. And the more she let her guard down, the more Daniel realized she wasn't cold, she was lonely. Just like him, but the biggest shift came one afternoon when Daniel rushed into work late, flustered, because Lily had been sick and throwing up all morning. He apologized, breathless, expecting disappointment. Olivia just nodded and quietly said, "Family first, Daniel. Always." He didn't know why, but hearing her say that made his eyes sting. That it was kindness he hadn't expected. Kindness he desperately needed. A week later, as he was leaving the office, he found Olivia sitting alone in the break room, staring at her phone with a troubled expression. It was the first time he'd ever seen her look small. "You okay?" he asked. She hesitated, then sighed. "My dad, he's not doing well. I flew him out here last month, but the care he needs is more complicated than I thought." Something in her voice wavered. Daniel sat beside her. "Do you have help?" "No," she whispered. "I'm all he has." Daniel swallowed. "That sounds really hard." Olivia blinked back tears. "Some days it feels like too much." He nodded slowly. "If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm around. And not just because you're my boss." She looked at him, her eyes soft and vulnerable. "Thank you," she said. "That means more than you know." That moment of honesty became the doorway to something deeper, a friendship built on mutual understanding. On struggle. On kindness freely given when life felt heavy, and through it all, the beach incident became nothing more than an embarrassing little memory they could almost laugh about. Almost months later, after countless conversations, after shared coffees and stressful deadlines and moments of raw honesty, Olivia met Daniel and Lily at the same beach again, this time on purpose. Lily ran into the waves. Daniel sat on the sand, watching her. Olivia sat beside him. "You know," she said, "the first time I saw you here, I thought you were the most awkward man alive." Daniel laughed. "I was terrified of getting fired. And I was terrified of being seen as anything other than perfect," she said quietly. He looked at her. She was wearing a simple white sundress, hair loose, a different person from the crisp, polished manager who never let her guard down. "Turns out," he said softly, "perfect is overrated." She smiled at him, warmly, openly, with a softness he had grown to admire. "You taught me something important, Daniel," she said. "That kindness isn't a weakness. And that people can show up for each other, even in the most awkward circumstances imaginable." Daniel chuckled. "Well, thank you for not firing me." She nudged him with her shoulder. "Thank you for seeing me." They watched the waves roll in. Lily's laughter carried through the air. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt light. Hopeful. Alive, not because something romantic had happened, not yet, but because kindness had changed both their lives. It had healed wounds neither of them talked about. It had created connection in the unlikeliest moment. It had reminded them that even when life throws an embarrassing accident your way, sometimes that moment becomes the doorway to something good, something human, something kind. In the end, the lesson wasn't about embarrassment. It wasn't about a beach or a mistake or a moment of panic. It was about what happens when we choose kindness instead of judgment. When we choose understanding instead of shame. When we look at someone, not as their role, or their title, or their flaws, but as a person who's just trying to make it through the day. If you carry anything from Daniel and Olivia's story, let it be this: kindness doesn't just change someone else's life. It can change your own. Spread it wherever you can.